Hey everybody, I'm Phillip,
And I'm Justin.
and together we are Pajamas. And we just watched Loki, episode 2. So, what did you think?
It was surprising.
Yeah,
It turns out that it's actually someone else that is doing this.
well, maybe it's still Loki, but we have like Lady Loki, which I'm assuming is its true form in, like, I was expecting another Tom Hiddleston Loki, mirror images kind of thing.
Yes, I found that to be very curious.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not familiar with any of the Marvel characters, so I assumed that maybe you would know it better than I would.
No, I've never seen her before. It is intriguing because all the variants they were showing looked like Loki.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing this person had was like the costume. So I was not expecting that. I talked in the last episode about being on the fence, seeing the good and the bad of Loki facing Loki. But now it's variant in a more broader sense of the word. It's truly a different kind of Loki. So I was not expecting that.
Yes, I especially was interested in the dialogue.
What part?
Well, of what the motivation is. If it isn't to take control of the timeline, then what could it be?
It looks like just to cause chaos, which they hinted at in the earlier in one of the many back and forth dialogues that Loki and Owen Wilson had.
Chaos for chaos's sake.
Yeah, it fits in with Loki's whole MO.
Yes, he did mention earlier about there being order at the end and then that's it, there's nothing.
Mm-hmm. Like as Loki said, it's gonna be boring. And there's no fun, there's no mischief.
No spontaneity.
Yeah, and order.
Everything is known.
Yeah, it's predetermined. So
He is very clever. I especially liked it that he was able to figure out that as long as the key event happens, it doesn't matter what little variance is done.
yeah, that was really smart in the way of writing, a way to use the lore that they're building, the world building that they're doing. You know, as they're watching all these events happen, it makes perfect sense then that if someone was going to cause mischief and needed to hide, they would hide in one place where no matter what they did,
Hmm?
it's not going to matter. It was a clever bit of writing there. I like that.
He did bring up one motivation of his,
Mm-hmm.
in that he actually is doing what was suspected by some, that he is trying to.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, assuming that they're even real.
yeah.
I'm still not completely convinced that whether or not they're real or maybe they're like Plato's noble lie or Marx's opium of the masses.
Right.
That maybe instead of being literal beings, maybe they are representations, anthropomorphisms of concepts. I'm still not completely sure if they're actually real. And of course, they did mention that when one goes to things like the beginning, that then one says very far-fetched things. Like when he asked, where does Loki come from?
Mm-hmm. The frost giant and then Asgard and Odin. Like, yeah, it all sounds very fantastical.
And well, yes, that's pretty much what it doesn't seem strange to him because, well, he was talking about himself.
Yeah, yeah.
With his experiences.
Right.
It would be like if you went to another world and you tried to explain yourself and how things work there, it may not seem like it's possible.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of a social commentary of religion itself.
Yeah, which we kind of went into in the last video. So I thought it was interesting that they circled back to it because I kind of went into I touched on it again and again and again in the last one about the timekeepers being real and using that kind of mythology as control and all that. So I do like that Loki was laughing in the face of it, even though, as you brought up, his own experience is far-fetched and fantastical.
But it only made sense to him because he actually experienced it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Would you say, for example, if we were to run into someone and they'd be saying something that seems very far-fetched, we would think that they would probably be mad. But that's something that they believe.
I mean, in fairness, depending on the mythology or the belief structure, take the story behind Fatima in Portugal.
Mhm.
The entire thing was built on someone's possible hallucination or someone flat out lying. If someone's talking nonsense, it depends on what they're saying, how they're saying it, how it's delivered, how it's sold. Because at the end of the day, it is a commodity, whether people want to realize it or not. Your mythology is a commodity.
And it also the reason why it's so significant to people is not simply what is said to have happened there, but because the story inspires hope. It gives people a sense of hope, which actually leads me to think of why it's given so much importance, primarily.
But it doesn't change the fact that if you take all that away from it, strip all of the salt and the pepper, take that away from the salad, you just look at the salad for what it is. Take away what it does, what it conjures, and just look at the facts. If they were written on a piece of paper, these people saw this thing.
Mm-hmm.
The end. It was never confirmed. It was never proven. So to circle it back, it's all subjective. So if I heard a person talking nonsense or crazy talk, then I'm going to dismiss them. But the issue isn't me. The issue is people that will listen to it and buy it as gospel. And I don't mean gospel in the broad sense, not just a religious sense. Like, we have known cult leaders who are preaching their own gospel. And most of the world sees it as nonsense. But the right people hear it and get indoctrinated. Anyone can spout gibberish and crazy talk. There will always be someone out there that sees nonsense as enlightenment. It can seem like nonsense to a skeptic, but it could seem like enlightenment to those who want to believe so bad that they'll believe whatever they're told, a la a cult leader gaining a flock. It's a fine line. So I get what you're saying, but at the same time, I can see how it also can be spun to work in the end, if that makes sense.
Yes. Well, he does come from the realm of Norse mythology, and well, it's very interesting that he would hear of these timekeepers, but because that is the world that he lived in, he wouldn't have a problem with there being 3 Norns that are chiseling runes into the Yggdrasil, which determine
that is very true. Yeah.
time, or weaving the fabric of time.
Yeah, it does seem a little funny that he's like, I'm a skeptic. I don't have that, life experience that Loki's had. If I did, like you just said, all the things that he would accept as a plausible reality, for him to question this in such a smarmy way, like the timekeepers can't be real, that's ridiculous. Well, sir, at the same time.
At the same time, you're saying that you are a child of frost giants and live in the heavenly realm of Asgard.
Right. Yeah. Which we know to be true because we've seen it. Now, if Loki was just a standalone show without Thor or the Avengers or anything, then there would be some doubt. They'd be like, maybe he is a little. But even then, he would have come from that. He would have come from his own mythology. So, yeah. I do like that he's skeptical. It could also be, it's Loki. He could just be fucking with him. Do I think Loki thinks the timekeepers are real? No. Do I think the timekeepers are real? No. So we're on that same wavelength, Neither one of us think they're real. But his skepticism doesn't really have as much validity to it as it would for like a normal human person on Earth who's not a god. He's a god. So, but also for a god to make sense of something greater than them, which is what Loki had to deal with in the last episode. So from a personal experience, no, but from an ego perspective, yes. Everything Loki does is with question marks. But if you look at it from that perspective, there's no way that Loki would think that there was something in control of him. And not just him, of his dad, of Asgard. Everything. In that vein, yeah, I can see how Loki is skeptical. I can see how he has some doubts because You mean to tell me that this is all predetermined and blah 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 blah? And yeah, they showed Loki the film of everything that happened on the sacred timeline, where he gets his mom killed and all of that. It would still be difficult for someone greater than everything around him to believe that something is greater than even him. So in that respect, I can completely understand where he's coming from and being like, this is absurd, this is dumb, this is not real. Do you have nothing else to add? So yeah, it's cool. How you said he discovered where the variant was hiding.
And well, it is with a good point. He knows himself more than anyone else, so of course he would be the expert to go to as far as finding a variant Loki, because, well, Loki knows Loki more than anyone else.
But Loki also tried to be Loki on the first damn mission when he's trying to stall for time. That's the interesting thing about it is, in that end back and forth, when the variant was like, the other Loki was jumping from person to person. Loki was saying, I stalled for time. I was helping you out, et cetera, et cetera. And it's a question, okay, like you just can't, I said this in the last one, you can't trust Loki ever. And I don't think you can trust Loki with Loki. I think it goes that deep. I don't think you can trust Loki with Loki in this regard. Because our Loki could have been telling other Loki what they wanted to hear to gain their trust. Because there's no way Loki wants to work with this other Loki. No way. And this other Loki is like, nah. In my opinion, at least, because of the whole superior, inferior. They're always going to want to be the superior version of Loki. And to work together, one of them is going to have to take a subordinate role in some way, or trick the other one into thinking it. And it's going to be that back and forth. A new cat and mouse.
That actually would make a very interesting episode.
Yeah.
It was said that nothing good is entirely good and nothing bad is entirely bad.
Mm-hmm.
Well, similarly with him, he is, well, both here and in the actual myths, he isn't necessarily good nor necessarily evil. He's complicated.
Yeah.
He's complex.
Mm-hmm.
Much like humanity actually is.
That's the initial reaction, is just, where do we go from here? Like, it ended, I'm like, I want to watch the next one. I was like, I want to watch the next one. What happens? He followed other Loki through the portal thingy.
And where to?
Yeah. All right, want to get to my notes?
Yes.
Phillip's notes.
So we started off in a Renaissance fair, which brought back fond memories of going to Renaissance fairs.
Oh yes, I really liked those.
Yeah, they're fun. And then this is something we've talked about in Doctor Who that kind of sticks out like a sore thumb for us. When they arrived there, the Renaissance lady said that they weren't dressed right. I was like, thank you.
And well, yes, that is true.
Like, we don't get that in Doctor Who thus far. So I appreciated that. Then I wrote here, which kind of Loki? Because they're talking about like, which kind of Loki, and I'm like, ooh, which kind of Loki? That's when the seeds started being planted to me. Like,
It could be of any possible variant.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking outside of the physical appearance. Like, they showed him as like almost like the Hulk. They showed him as like different things, but it always looked like Loki. That's what he said a little bit earlier.
Different variants in time, like the notion of alternate universes.
Yeah,
that in this universe, you are this. In that universe, you are that.
Which is intriguing, because when you think of alternate universes, you think of just yourself, but a different version, but not a different form. Like, there's a version of me in an alternate universe that didn't get into a car accident, that didn't have their back mangled, that didn't prematurely go bald and go gray because of all the stress and pain. There's someone that's like living their pain-free existence. There's a version of me somewhere that had it worse. There's a version of me somewhere that didn't make it past the age of 5. There's a version of me that lived to be like 102. Like, there's just, but in my head, all these versions are me. But it's not me as a female. It's not me as a person of color. It's not me. I don't mean that in any negative way, of course. I'm just saying, like, when you think of it in your head, because your ego places you, who you are, and what you see yourself as, in different events, if you think about alternate realities, it's always you, just in a different circumstance. But there would have to be me as a female, and me as an African American, and me in different forms. So it would still be me. And the fact that I've never thought of it like that is very telling. And it's one of those like lessons that I like to learn, because I like to think I'm a pretty self-realized person. And then when you discover something about yourself, it's like, okay, cool. I just became a little more self-aware, a little more knowledgeable about who I am. And the fact that I never thought of it in that way.
Seeing what's beyond the domain of the ego?
Yeah, yeah. Like thinking about it right now, like having this epiphany on camera as we're talking, just like, how have I never thought of it like that? Because it was never in a derogatory way. Like I was like, I don't want to be a woman to some other. No, not at all. Like
Phenomenologically, you are the way that you are because of, well, not only simply because you are yourself, but also because of the things that have happened to you, the things that have shaped who you are.
right, yeah,
And also, not only of what your life, livelihood, or anything like that would be, but also how you see yourself.
mm-hmm. And I see myself as a Caucasian human male because that's all I've known myself as. And then when you watch movies and they show like alternate realities, it's the same person just dressed differently or different haircut, or it feeds into that same egocentric notion of self. But self isn't just contained in gender or in the pigment of your skin. It can be morphed and shaped, and to think about that is just very fascinating and really cool. That unless this is Loki in disguise again, I'm taking this at face value that this is a female Loki. Even if it's not, I still firmly believe that alternate realities can work like that now, because I just enlightened myself to thinking like that, which is totally awesome. Just crazy to think about. Things aren't what they seem. Even our own perception can be skewed. I touched on this earlier, a little earlier actually. But no, on the first mission, Loki already tried to deceive them. I was like, oh, come on. It's the first day mission. like just all the tears and all of the humility from the last episode. It's like, and then they gave him that whole like, humanistic emotional moment again, where he read about Asgard and Ragnarok and I don't believe you, Loki, I don't believe you. And then the line, not unless the timekeepers decree it, then it shall be so. That feeds into our discussion last time of who are they to decide? Who are they to decree and why? And as you brought up, who keeps them in check? Who keeps them in check? Who keeps them in check? That kind of thing.
If they are real, the only thing that I can think of at this moment is that they keep each other in check, but, well, all right, if they can keep themselves individually in check, what about they as a group? What keeps them as a group in check? All three could go to beyond what should be their boundaries, and there's no one that they have to answer to. So they could if they wanted to.
That we know of, yeah. Because historically, every deity, godlike figure has some kind of ego about it. Even traditional God does. For fuck's sake, God flooded the earth and killed damn near everyone. And why?
Basically, the moral state of humanity was so low that basically there was a need to simply have the canvas whitened and start over again.
So God was just disgusted, and rather than try and fix it, mass genocide. And then God had to make a rainbow so God could remind themselves to not do that again. And I'm not trying to shit on your religion. I'm using these as examples as it pertains to the show we're watching. So with the timekeepers, I'm just showing that in the book, God is very sensitive and is very spiteful. But again, we talked last time, and I'll reiterate it. It's like the book was written by a vengeful God and a loving God, and over time, they overlap, which is why the Bible's confusing. So vengeful God is of course going to be vengeful. You're not operating the way I want you to. Well, you're a God. You can change and fix anything. Do you have to do it in a way that is mass genocide? No. And then it happens, and then nice God is like, what did you do? Rainbow, I'm sorry. So it just begs the question, to bring it back, because I'm not trying to be an asshole, what ego, what motive, what insecurities do the timekeepers have? If they're three individual people, that is three individual personalities, one would think, unless they're machines like I theorized in the last one. What are their hangups? Obviously, diverting the timeline is their hangup, but why is their timeline sacred? Like, what does it go? What was the end? And how does it fit into their agenda? What agendas do they have individually, and as you said, as a group?
Yes, because they as a group could go to pretty much any extreme
Mm-hmm.
if they only have to answer to themselves.
Exactly, yeah. And just like the vengeful god did, went to the extreme of destroying 99% of life on Earth because they could. They had no one to answer to. I like the line, a double cross by history's most reliable liar. Not only good alliteration, it was a good line.
That was good. A testament to his cleverness.
Mm-hmm.
And well, with cleverness, it can either be for the benefit or for the detriment of, well, of whomever he wants it to be.
Yeah, that's very true, yeah. Well, you've like that conversation that he had at the end, you know, who was he trying to appease to? Her, him, or them both? Like, it's, you can't, and I think that's why the other Loki was like, whatever, and just did the thing and walked away, because I think that one knows it's Loki. Like, it's me, the inferior version of me, both of them think.
Yes. Which would make for a very interesting dynamic in that they want to be the one that is superior, but at the same time want the recognition that they are.
Exactly. The ego. Yeah, they want the pride and all that they were talking about.
They don't only want to think it themselves, they want the other to also think it.
Because in their mindset, it's not validated if it's not acknowledged. Like, acknowledgement is everything to Loki. He wants to be known as a trickster and known as cunning and known as being mischievous. If a tree falls in the woods and no one's there to see it, does it fall? If Loki performs a trick and no one's there to admire it, take notice of it, see it, what's the point of even performing it at all, in his mind?
At best, all that it is wishful thinking.
Yeah, so far. And then the line, there's a lot of good lines in this episode. The line of, existence is chaos, nothing makes sense, so we try and make sense of it. Which is, again, where mythology and where social constructs come from.
It's basically what humanity does best. Try to make sense of things that don't make sense.
In very varied and weird ways, if you do some digging. It doesn't hurt to research. Not just what you believe in, but what you think you know about the world. I urge anyone to just dig a little deeper. I'm not saying try and prove it right or prove it wrong. Just educate yourselves. And then this entire time, the other Loki has been stealing the reset charges. And I'm like, what are you planning? What are you up to? And now, that end was very cool when they all went through the various little portals and just made all kinds of different splits on the sacred timeline. I was just like, if we'd done a reaction to it, I was just like, whoa, this is cool. This is cool.
Yes, you've heard of art for art's sake.
Mm-hmm.
Ars gratia artis. Well, this would be chaos for chaos's sake.
And this is like the ultimate chaos. This would make our Loki be giddy. You know, Loki, our Loki would love it to see that. Like, how much more chaos can you cause than causing chaos for the so-called timekeepers, who have to? This is like the perfect way to prove that they don't exist. Cause so much chaos that it can't be fixed. Because if they are the all-knowing, all-seeing, all-creating, fix it. Just like here on Earth, there's all these problems. And if there's an all-knowing, all-seeing, all-creating, all-powerful,
simply go to the timeline
and just fix it.
And yes, fix it before it happens.
There's a lot here to chew on. Just like episode 1, I'm really enjoying the world building they're doing. And then at the end, something I really liked is we had person by the plants, then we had the soldier lady, then we had the younger gentleman, and then we had the husky guy. That was cool that all of them had to act like Loki. Had to have that kind of like swagger, cockiness to them. And I thought they all did a good job. It's fun to watch other people have to play someone that they are not playing, but mimicking it off of someone else's portrayal of that. So I thought that part was really cool, especially at the end there, when they were jumping like that. Everyone did a good job. And that is all for my notes. The rest are for my patrons over on Patreon. Overall, another very intriguing episode with a lot of questions. More questions, not a lot of answers, which is the point.
Indeed, there are more questions than answers. Somewhat like what you said, that basically with Loki, it's nothing but question marks.
Yeah,
because you don't really know for sure what the actual answer is until it's too late.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to get any answers anytime soon, which is fine by me, actually, because it brings up so many questions and so much in the realm of like ethics and philosophy and religion and, social norms and then just unknown because it's Loki, as we've talked about. Very much looking forward to episode 3.
So am I. I'd really like to know how they interact.
And as you said, I want to know where they go. Like, of all the splits in the in the sacred timeline, where are they going? What's going to happen? Because now the TVA thinks that Loki is the villain, even though because no one saw Loki fight Loki. From TVA's perspective, from Loki's perspective, from other Loki's perspective, from Timekeeper's perspective, other Loki just dropped a bunch of bombs onto the sacred timeline. So
I would have assumed that there would have been some sort of, considering how such a thing could occur, that they would have had some sort of protocol, like a code blue or code red, that it's one of those things that rarely happens.
Yeah.
But we have a plan for when something like that happens.
like a failsafe.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Like a button you hit and everything just shuts the hell down. Which you think the Timekeepers would have if they were real. Maybe they are. Like I said, this is Marvel, so they could 100% be real. Like we talked about Loki. Loki comes from Asgard, Frost Giant, all of it. So yeah, I'm definitely eager to start the next one.
So am I.
Alrighty. Anything else you'd like to add about this one? Okay. Well, that's going to wrap up this video. As always, I don't have a fancy outro, so I'll simply say thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next one. Until then, goodbye.
Goodbye.